They are called biological response modifiers. And what this means is they're not really like pharmaceuticals. They don't really like stimulate a pharmaceutical reaction. They cause the body itself to change. I'm sure the immune system that might be flagging, so that it can better address whatever those challenges are. So that's what got me into mushrooms, because they're an amazing way of addressing problems that we may not be able to address that well with conventional therapies.
Welcome to the Call the Vet Show, the podcast that helps pet parents understand and optimize the health of their furry family so they can live the full and happy life you want for them. And here's your host, veterinarian Dr. Alex Avery.
Hello, kia ora. Welcome to another episode of the Call the Vet Show. I hope you're doing well. Since we last spoke, I have had a much-needed break back to the UK. First time I've headed back home to see various family members for 4 years. So it was fantastic that the borders have opened up here in New Zealand and we're free to travel without any kind of restrictions or testing or isolation requirements or anything like that. And I had a fantastic time. We dealt with a lot of warm, hot weather, and I know a lot of you will be dealing with the effects of the heat and drought and all those kinds of challenges. So I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're staying safe. You're managing to enjoy some of the warm weather and it's not all doom and gloom where you are. And so today I'm bringing you a fantastic conversation I had with Dr. Rob Silver and Joni Camlett, all about the use of mushrooms to maintain health, to maintain vitality, to optimize health, and how they could be and maybe should be a part of every pet parent's wellness plan for their dog or cat, but also how mushrooms can be a really valuable treatment option for some really nasty conditions that maybe conventional treatments don't have as much effect as we would like. So this is a really wide-ranging conversation. I learnt a lot. I know you will as well. And just a quick note before we start. We were hit with some technical gremlins on this call, and the quality of the audio isn't quite as good as it normally is. You can still hear everything and get all of the fantastic information that my guests brought to this conversation. If you are having trouble hearing or understanding any particular segment, then make sure you head over to the show notes at callthevet.org, where there is the full transcript and comprehensive blog post to accompany this episode, as always. And so without further ado, here's my conversation all about the use of mushrooms in pets with Dr. Rob Silver and Joni Camlett.
Here's this episode's expert interview.
Dr. Rob and Joni, welcome along to the podcast. I'm really excited for our conversation today, all about the world of mushrooms, because it's something that I'm aware of kind of in the background and on the fringes, but not something I've had a huge experience with. So I'm going to learn a lot, but I'd love to, before we kind of dive into the nitty gritty, find out, kind of what brought you into the world of mushrooms and how you started using them and seeing the benefits that you have. Maybe Joni, if we start with you.
Yeah, sure. And thank you for having us on here. It's really good to be on the show with you. And yeah, so my background, I'm a registered veterinary technician and a certified canine rehabilitation practitioner. And so I got out of hands-on vet medicine and was working in the supplement industry, teaching veterinarians about nutrition and herbs and whole food supplements. And then I started working for a supplement company. I got involved in supporting formulating, and we were using mushrooms. And it was actually not a veterinary company, but I've always admired Dr. Silver. And when I heard that he was formulating this veterinary line for this mushroom company, I couldn't wait to get on board. So that's kind of how I found my way into mushrooms, just reading about them and then I'd already been working with vets. And so I started giving them the mushrooms and asking them for feedback on what they were seeing in pets. And based on that feedback, it confirmed to me that this was an area that we really needed to do more with animals. And so that's my way. And
Fantastic.
Dr.
Yeah,
Silver
super
has his
interesting.
own.
Yeah, Dr. Rob, what brought you into this field?
So, when I graduated vet school, which is a long time ago, I'm an old timer. I graduated in 1982 from Colorado State University. I thought I had all the tools I would need to address the terrible diseases that I was going to encounter in day-to-day practice. And for a while that kind of worked out. But after a few years, I started seeing patients that I just could not touch, that the tools I was given in vet school didn't work for them. Chronic disease, diabetes, autoimmune disease, cancer, some very tough stuff, Cushing's disease, even not a lot of good stuff for that. So I started looking at nutritional diets as ways of perhaps modifying the health of the animal. And I looked at herbs, I looked at dietary supplements, like, things like fish oil and whatnot, antioxidants, and looked at cannabis and CBD, and in the process developed an expertise in that. And it was a natural progression to look at mushrooms, because mushrooms are very much like CBD in that each individual mushroom or each individual cannabis plant is like a polypharmacy. It has so much stuff in it, so many good, beneficial, bioactive molecules. It's not just a one-trick pony. And so for me, who's a bit of a nerd, a bit of a pharmacology nerd, I like to know how all these ingredients that are in the plants and in the mushrooms work in the body. What membrane receptors do they signal, all that complicated stuff. I like to figure that part out. Mushrooms were every bit as exciting and interesting and fascinating as the treasure trove of pharmacologic ingredients. So that's my story. And clinically, I have found mushrooms to be incredibly beneficial, but they're a different kind of a category of substance. They're not something like you might take, let's say, what am I going to say? Something like, let's say, licorice root, let's say, to reduce inflammation. It does that relatively quickly. Mushrooms really are more of a lifestyle supplement. They can work okay in the short term, but they are at their highest performance when they're taken on a regular basis, daily, over a long period of time. They are called biological response modifiers. And what this means is they're not really like pharmaceuticals. They don't really stimulate a pharmaceutical reaction. They cause the body itself to change, for it to improve in its healing process, for it to upshore the immune system that might be flagging, so that it can better address whatever those challenges are. So that's what got me into mushrooms, because they're an amazing way of addressing problems that we may not be able to address that well with conventional therapies.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess that daily use is we see that in like the mushroom coffees and all those different products for people as well. They're designed to be a regular addition to a lifestyle rather than always just targeting a treatment. So I guess I'd love to dive in like why mushrooms are different to herbs. So we've got that polypharmacy, but I guess that goes back to their biology and their category of kind of as we classify different organisms and that kind of thing. Is there specifics in there that are just not found in other plants that are the really useful ones?
Can I speak to this a little bit, Joni?
Yeah, no, you please take it, Dr. Silver. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, there are three kingdoms for living things on this planet. We have our animal kingdom, and we have our plant kingdom, but we have the fungal kingdom, which is separate and different from the other two. It's thought that millennia, millions of years ago, that when we were more at the single cell level of development, as animals, plants, or fungi, that animals and fungi actually spun off from the same organism. So they share a lot of DNA in common, which is one reason why they seem to really have a strong impact on on animals, humans, pets, livestock, all those above. So it's that fungal kingdom that is so dominant, and we're learning more and more. I mean, even today I read something about how important this fungal kingdom is to the health of our planet because of its ability to recycle and renew all of these dead and dying animal and plant materials that are on our planet and how it works. And then the part of the lifestyle cycle of the fungi includes this mycelial stage. And we're learning more that this mycelial stage winds up creating this huge, acres, hundreds of acres, if not square miles or hectares of mycelial growth that underlies forests and the soil. And there's like a communication system that allows the sharing of nutrients and important information. Now, how they inform each other, I think you need to kind of have plant intelligence or fungal intelligence to understand. But the mycelium is almost like a worldwide net. So the more we're learning about, we are learning more and more that they're not just bread mold. They're just not something that spoils the meat in the fridge. They are something that is integral every day to the health of our planet and to our own health, the health of our growing things. So, that's a long-winded answer for a good question,
No, I mean, it's fascinating because I think it's easy to think of, we put all of our, herbs and other things in the same bucket, but they're very different and they have their different uses and different actions. And I think it's important to understand that if we really want to, to really be recognizing all of the different aspects and changes that we can be making. So with regards, kind of Joni, our use to maintain daily health, we've also got our other kind of category of treating disease. Is it mainly, and we've spoken about that before, but is it really just this optimizing the daily health as a kind of a daily supplement or a weekly supplement, or what does that kind of look like to the general pet out there?
Yeah, well, and I just want to go back. I just want to piggyback on what Dr. Robs just said. That's one of the things that got me so excited when I first learned about mushrooms, like the idea that we share more of our DNA, like the mushrooms share more of their DNA with us than they do with plants. I mean, they really, just personally from taking mushrooms, I can feel a difference in my resiliency. They support the tone, vigor, and function of the body, and that's what they're going to do when we give them to our pets. So it's great to take mushrooms daily, and in addition, there are certain mushrooms that focus on specific organ targets. For instance, cordyceps mushroom has an affinity for the lungs and the kidneys. A lot of people have heard about, turkey tail mushroom, which is probably the most popular mushroom in veterinary medicine, and its uses for supporting animals with cancer. There's mushrooms that support cardiac health, liver health, et cetera. And taking them daily, I just notice, and I just, the feedback we're getting, with pets that are on them, they have more of an ability to kind of withstand the daily stresses of life. But in addition, if they are dealing with some sort of illness, chronic illness, mushrooms can be added to the protocol to give a whole lot of support. And, Dr. Silver can share more. There are not a lot of clinical studies, unfortunately, with animals. There's a lot of, there's more and more human studies every day, in vitro, in vivo studies, but a lot of the information that we're learning about mushrooms with animals is anecdotal. But there's a lot of it. It's, I really firmly believe that everybody should be on every being, humans and animals, can benefit from being on some sort of mushroom daily.
Sure. Fantastic. So I guess that touches us then on kind of the evidence to support their use, because I guess we find a lot of the time with these new and emerging fields that, it's not a whole lot, but we can borrow from the human, the human side as well. I mean, that's that's showing that there is biological activity and it's helping, and we're not all that different. So we've got that anecdote, and we've got that history of use through yourselves and other people. But where do we sit with this? Is this something that is being actively looked at? Is it the fact that we're relying on kind of just a couple of studies and people aren't really that interested in the scientific community? What's the picture like there?
There's actually a huge body of objective evidence about mushrooms that's been developing for many, many years, much, much longer than we have for cannabis, because there hasn't been the regulatory issues with THC. Now, so there's a huge amount of research, and there are good clinical trials. A lot of it comes out of Asia and comes out of Eastern Europe, which are cultures that have always, loved mushrooms. Some of the Western cultures, the English culture, and some American cultures, I think, are a bit what they call mycophobic, a bit afraid of mushrooms because of the poisoning aspect of some mushrooms, although not, only a few mushrooms are poisonous, but they sure get your attention when they affect your dog or your or a friend or something, or yourself. So a lot of the evidence, they're doing studies that aren't lifestyle studies. They're directing them to some clinical entity, be it, allergic asthma, be it, cancer, be it a number of different things, a wide variety of applications that have been scientifically proven in laboratory animals and in some human clinical trials as well. We just don't have them in our veterinary species because there's been no economic stimulus. It costs money to do studies. There's been no economic stimulus until recently. Real Mushrooms as a company has been around for 7 years, which is a long time in the mushroom space. And we're talking about what kinds of studies we can generate with dogs and cats and horses that would be valuable to both the pet consumer, but also to veterinarians. And so one of my big roles is to package all of this into good educational material that veterinarians can wrap their minds around and understand that mushrooms are more than just something that their patient picks up in the backyard, because that is a danger, is the backyard mushroom.
Yeah, and I guess that's what people, like you say, people worry. Well, we hear mushrooms and we hear how you've got to be so careful, and if you don't know what you're doing, you should not go and just pick a mushroom and eat it. Yeah. So what kind of, I guess, problems can we get into? Are there certain individuals where it's not appropriate to be using mushrooms, or are there certain, certain types that are a little bit more care needs to be given, albeit that they're still on that in the kind of the supplement markets, if you like?
In humans, we have reports of some small percentage of people having some allergies to some mushrooms. Oftentimes, they're the actual raw versions of the mushrooms versus the cooked versions. But many of the mushrooms that we find have clinical value, have medicinal value, are oyster mushroom, our little button mushrooms, portobello mushrooms, or crimini mushrooms. These all have good research that supports that the ingredients they contain actually can create beneficial clinical change. So then there's a few mushrooms which are not all that edible because they're kind of woody. These mushrooms that grow on trees, kind of look like shelves. They are very woody, just like the tree itself. And they use materials, oftentimes molecules that are found in the tree. They transform them and concentrate them, and we get to use some of the benefit of the tree as well in that regards, but they're not as edible. And then we have the psychedelic mushrooms, of which there's really only one species, which is the psilocybin species, and we're not talking about that, although there is a lot of interest in it. And Sarah Andre, who you interviewed a while ago, she showed a big interest in trying to bring psilocybin mushrooms into dogs that may have, a lot of behavior issues, PTSD, things like that. I know there's a study that's being worked on in Canada on dogs that are in warfare and that get PTSD, and looking to see if psilocybin mushroom might help them with that. But we're not going there. And then there's the toxic mushrooms, which are a small percentage but gets everybody's attention. So we're not dealing with toxic mushrooms. We're not dealing with the psychedelic mushrooms. We're dealing with the edible mushrooms and the non-edible mushrooms that work as functional foods, or that have good functions clinically. So, for instance, I had shiitake mushroom last night for dinner. Now, fresh mushrooms are like 90% water. So if you dry it down, you get a more concentrated amount of the good medicinal properties of the mushroom. But mushrooms are very fibrous. You've ever eaten a mushroom, they're tasty, but a little bit of chew factor there. So a lot of the bioactive ingredients in the mushrooms that create that work clinically, that give benefits, are trapped inside that fiber. And so the way you release them from the fiber is to boil them in water, or you don't really boil them, you bring them almost up to boiling, like 190 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be like maybe 90 degrees centigrade, and then we do that for a couple of hours, which releases releases the goodies from the fiber. So, for instance, putting mushrooms into soup is a great way to eat them and also to release all their good properties. So, so that's kind of, I think I'm answering your question. It was kind of a wide-ranging question there, and maybe Jody wants to pipe in here too.
I just want to add a little bit. The general rule of thumb is if a mushroom is safe for a human, it's going to be safe for an animal. So, in answer to your original question, like we would never recommend eating foraged mushrooms, like unless you're a mushroom expert, don't go out into the woods and pick mushrooms and give them to your pet. Definitely not. If you want to cook with mushrooms, for the most part, if you go to the farmer's market or to the grocery store, all of those mushrooms are going to be safe for pets. The medicinal mushrooms that come in supplement form that humans take are going to be safe for pets. And like Dr. Rob said, anything can cause anything. I mean, there are certainly going to be animals or people that have allergies, just like they can have sensitivities to anything. But for the most part, mushrooms, what I love about mushrooms is they're functional foods, basically. And so it's very hard. What we're learning is that you can give, for the most part, you can give mushrooms in very large doses. And in fact, therapeutically, that's often, recommended, under the guidance of a veterinarian. But the the clinical study, Dr. Rob, I don't know if you want to dive into that hemangiosarcoma study. What they found was the higher doses were giving the better outcomes with dogs. Wasn't a great study, but it's one of the few that we have.
Yeah, sure. So hemangiosarcoma being a bleeding tumor that's often of the spleen. So there's specific information about specific mushrooms used to treat that, is there?
There's two published studies, Doc, that were funded by a Chinese company that has patented a process to extract one particular individual molecule from the growing mycelium of the turkey tail mushroom in a special liquid broth. Okay, but it's actually, they've used this extract, it's patented, they've used it in human cancer patients in China concurrently with chemotherapy. So the company wanted to spend some money and see if they could get some starting with animal studies here in the US, moving eventually to FDA approval. So the first study they did surprised everybody. It was just a tiered dosing study, and they only had small study groups of like 5 dogs each. But the highest dosing tier, as Joni is suggesting, actually caused these dogs to have survival times greater than historical survival times for dogs who were splenectomized, had their spleen removed, but also received chemotherapy, which these days is the gold standard for treating hemangiosarcoma. And so it surprised everybody. Well, they then did a follow-up study with study groups of 25 dogs each. And they did one group that had just the mushroom extract alone. These are dogs that all were clinically had hemangiosarcoma, had their spleens removed. And then they had another cohort that had the chemotherapy with the mushroom. And then they had a third cohort with the chemotherapy with a placebo mushroom. And what they found was in this larger study that there wasn't as much of a benefit for this single molecular extract at the dosage that they used in the entire body of patients. But they did find a small benefit for the male dogs versus the female dogs in the study, that there's actually a sex-associated outcome with And I think they find that with chemo as well, but much less so than they were able to find with this. So we don't understand what those mechanisms are yet. That study was just published last month. We're still kind of looking at it and going over it and discussing it. But my thinking is that because, see, the turkey tail mushroom historically has had great success in treating human patients with cancer. And the number of anecdotal testimonials that we get as a company from cancer survivors who are using our turkey tail, or from vets or from pet owners that are using turkey tail for their cancer, it's hard to ignore. Although we know there with anecdotal, studies, although there's evidence, it's not unbiased. There's always that placebo effect, or in pet owners, that wishful thinking that the animal's getting better. We've seen that many times, But my thinking is that it's a higher dosage of the whole turkey tail mushroom that doesn't have a single isolated ingredient, but has the full panorama of the 10 to 20 to 30 different active molecules that are similar but different, that work together synergistically. So that's where I want to go with my clinical trials, is I want to start with turkey tail and make sure it's safe at about a 10 times normal dose, okay? And then I've got a couple of integrative oncologists to put together a multi-center study that's going to be similar to what these published studies are in dogs with hemangiosarcoma, to see if we can make an impact. Now, it might be that hemangiosarcoma as a disease is just such an awful, terrible, aggressive disease. There just is nothing that we have in our technology or in our natural pharmacy today that really can make as much of a difference. Really, it's more up to the individual animal's immune system to really, because that's where we do see some animals that do well on hemangiosarcoma for several years, which we don't understand. Sometimes we give them mushrooms, we think the mushrooms did it. Sometimes we don't give them anything and they still do well. So we need more studies about this. I'm hopeful that we can find some benefit to the higher doses of the whole turkey tail mushroom for cancer, because let's face it, I'm sure you're aware of this as well. We've got a cancer epidemic in our pets going on, and we've got to do something about it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's fascinating. I guess what your explanation of that study springs to my mind is that we always want to dial it down to this one thing that is the beneficial thing, but sometimes it's not just the one thing. It's all these lots of little things. And I mean, I say that with regards to, even the treatment of our common diseases, arthritis. We don't want just the one painkiller. We have our whole lifestyle changes and our diets and our weight loss and our, all our supplements. And it's the same maybe with this as well, dialing it down to that one pharmaceutical.
It is for everything. Yeah, multimodal. I like that word, multimodal.
Yeah, it's a fantastic.
Or integrative, because we take the best evidence-based conventional therapies and we blend them with the best evidence-based alternative therapies to improve the outcome of our patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's making, I mean, you touched there on the limitations of different types of evidence, and that's absolutely true. I mean, I think if we're at the same time, and I'm a big believer in following the evidence, up front, but at the same time, we need to, not discount everything just because there isn't that placebo, double-blinded, gold standard, because we'll be waiting for an awful long time with an awful lot of things if we're waiting for that before we start, just trying it and integrating it, like you say, with everything else.
Yeah, and the study came out, this original hemangiosarcoma study came out with the turkey tail in 2012, and it kind of set off the original interest in mushrooms for animals. And, there are a number of veterinary oncologists that it's part of their protocol, and the turkey tail can be used in conjunction with chemotherapy. And, it is frustrating because holistic medicine doesn't have the funds that these big pharmaceutical companies have. And so, it's when I first started working for Real Mushrooms, Dr. Rob used to ask me, I'd say, well, I heard this or I heard that. He's like, well, where's the evidence, Joni? And so, yes, it's very, very important. And at the same time, like we have an app called Slack, and every time somebody leaves a review on our website, it pings my cell phone. And, since January, when I started with Real Mushrooms, it's pinging like all day long. There's reviews coming in, and many of them are animal reviews, and person after person saying that there's some benefit that they see their dog receiving, whether it's a tumor shrinking or, longer survival times or, better quality of life, et cetera. Again, it's frustrating because that evidence, it can't come soon enough. And at the same time, it's hard to discount when so many people are seeing a benefit. And that's what keeps me excited about continuing to do this work.
I guess I'm kind of diving then into the products and that side of things. I mean, you'll be aware, Joni, from kind of your first life, if you like, of working with different supplements and in a supplement company, that quality can vary hugely between manufacturers, between different products. I'd love to talk about, what the, kind of the differences can be between, sources and how people can
Absolutely.
be certain that their supplement that they're providing is, a good quality one containing what it says it does.
Well, I joined this company last year, and I joined them specifically because of their quality control. I'm also a formulator of products and have been for 25 years, particularly specifically for veterinary use, although now I'm formulating for pet use as well. And Real Mushrooms has a parent company that cultivates these mushrooms under organic standards. And it cultivates them, and then it extracts them, it dries them and extracts them according to the highest standards. Third party analyzes every batch to make sure it doesn't contain heavy metals, doesn't contain pollutants, that it is in fact a very clean material. Real Mushrooms is the kind of the retail wing of this manufacturing company that's Canadian as well. Real Mushrooms and the other company called Namex, they're both Canadian companies. So they take these dried, organically grown mushrooms and they hot water extract them. They do various levels of concentration depending on what end product they need to put them in. And so the testing is done all throughout the process. And so it's a very clean product. Each bottle that's labeled by a given mushroom species, like let's say go back to turkey tail, we've got that. It's standardized. So from bottle to bottle, from batch to batch, from capsule to capsule, you get the exact same percentage of active ingredients in it. They standardize it to a type of ingredient that's common to all mushrooms called beta-glucans. And the beta-glucans are these molecules, are actually part of the fibrous wall of the mushroom, but they signal our immune system because the worst infections ever are fungal infections. They're the hardest to treat. I think in part because we share DNA with them. They kind of know how to get into us, So fungal pathogens are the most difficult. So all living beings' immune systems evolved to be able to very robustly detect the presence of fungus. Mushrooms are fungus as well. What that does is it detects that there's a mushroom there. The mushroom's not pathogenic, but it activates the immune system because that's this ancient mechanism that we have to protect us against fungal infections. So it activates the immune system. But all mushrooms have these beta-glucans in them. So by standardizing them to the beta-glucans, we get a sense as far as how much of that mushroom do we need to use to give a certain amount of beta-glucans to produce a certain result. We have established dosages for beta-glucans in all animals, humans as well, that allows us to then be able to give some kind of an objective basis for dosing or administering these mushroom compounds. Now, mushrooms are different from each other. They all have the same beta-glucans, although the beta-glucans they have are also different from mushroom to mushroom, but they have other molecules. And these other molecules are what makes each mushroom have its individual effect. Like, for instance, there's one mushroom called lion's mane. Lion's mane has good beta-glucans. It's got like 25% beta-glucans, but it's got these other molecules in them called terpenes. Terpenes are the things that make vegetables smell, like you squeeze a lemon and you can smell that. That's limonene, which is a very simple terpene. Mushrooms have much more complicated terpenes, which may add a little bit of bitter taste to them, but which activate many pathways in our body to reduce inflammation or reduce the growth of cancer cells or improve mentation or stimulate growth factors, nerve growth factors that allow us to repair following trauma. Lion's mane has those kinds of terpenes in them, which stimulate brain repair and also have a calming effect, a settling effect, and can also reduce anxiety and improve cognition. And it's called a nootropic, nootropic compound, which means that it helps to increase your mind's intelligence or mind's capacity to be cognitive. So that's kind of the story behind why I think this company is so good, because it creates products that are very similar to the other products that we use to treat our patients. And it makes it simple to do it, though.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So I guess it's as much of an education of the pet parent out there as it is the vet at this stage as well.
Yes.
For those, Joni, for those people who are listening to this and thinking, well, it sounds like mushrooms are going to be a real benefit for me and for my furry family. How can people go about starting introducing this? We've kind of touched at the beginning and there with Dr. Rob just about how beneficial it can be across the body as a whole, not just for treating disease. How can people go about introducing this to their pets' lifestyle and wellness plan?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you can cook, mushrooms and add them to your pet's diet if you're home feeding, but it's very hard to do that consistently. You're not going to do it every day. So I think, supplementation is great. And, of course, in the US, and we're actually also on iHerb, if it's a pet that is generally healthy and you just want to proactively add mushrooms to kind of increase that resiliency and that, the vigor of the body, there's I would recommend like a combination of mushrooms. Mushrooms seem to work best in synergy. So we have a product called 5 Defenders, which is a combination of turkey tail, reishi, chaga, maitake, and shiitake. All of these mushrooms are immunomodulating. They're all anti-inflammatory. The 5 Defenders would be kind of a whole body support. To go back to like what Dr. Silver was talking about earlier, the lion's mane, that was actually the mushroom that got me excited initially. That's the mushroom that I sent out to my vets initially because I was because I had read some literature about the ability of lion's mane to support the regeneration of the myelin sheath. And having worked in rehabilitation with dogs with degenerative myelopathy, where the myelin sheath starts to disintegrate, and it's a very, very kind of a tragic, illness, disease with there's no cure for it. I actually sent the lion's mane out to these veterinarians that did rehab and said, "Hey, try this. This mushroom. This is a really cool mushroom, and there's these clinical studies on the myelin sheath." And what they ended up saying is, for the DM, it works kind of, just like with DM dogs, they can be good one day and bad other. But for cognition, they were noticing these older dogs with DM were having very specific changes in their cognitive function. Dogs with dementia, suddenly finding the dog door where they couldn't before, making direct eye contact with owners, very specific things like that. So for pet parents that are listening, if you have an older dog with cognition issues, like lion's mane would be a great one. Lion's mane traditionally was used also for the gut to support like irritable bowel disease and ulcers. So, it kind of has that double use. The 5 Defenders, great proactively. Dr. Rob, do you want to add some other ones here? I
think that using a combination is like the kind of shotgun approach is generally well accepted. And so for those that are looking for wellness, certainly that's a good approach. At the same time, talking about these testimonials that we get, we're getting quite a few testimonials about using that shotgun being very effective for treating conditions like cancer or so on. So I think I think what's cool is that they just seem like they're so robust that almost any mushroom you choose can have a benefit. But we're trying to educate and label the products in such a way as to make it easy, because it is complicated. It can be confusing.
Yeah.
And we want to make it simple because that will encourage pet parents to use it more, which then reaches my goal and Joni's goal, which is to raise up the level of health of all of our critters out there.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit more, because I do this all the time. I like to use individual mushrooms for specific purposes, and oftentimes I'll put like 2 individual mushrooms together. For instance, I created a formula for this soft chew product, which uses the lion's mane along with another mushroom called reishi or Ganoderma. Reishi also has calming properties. Zen masters will take it as a meditation aid, for instance. So it's not like it's sedative. It's not going to knock them out. But I put some theanine and tryptophan in this to kind of help with the whole calming process as well. So that, so here you could think about using it for relaxing or settling, not really sedating. We found a lot of help for this during one of our holidays where they use fireworks. And you know how frightened dogs are of fireworks. We have thunderstorms in the summer. We also have a soft chew, which contains the defenders that Joni was referring to, which has the 5 mushrooms in it, all of which have very potent immune-enhancing properties. And there's several herbs in here, like ashwagandha and astragalus root, which are both adaptogens, but also work synergistically with the mushrooms to improve immune system response. So, we've got a lot of tools. We're just at the beginning of my work. One of the products I have in mind is something that pet parents can use every day to sprinkle on the food that gives a little bit of everything, not just the mushrooms, but some antioxidants, some probiotics, some digestion boosters, the whole thing. So people can feel, because life's so busy these days. Who has time to even listen to podcasts? Well, obviously someone's listening to this, So to make it easy to put something in every morning or every evening when you're just giving them their bowl, even if you're just feeding old kibble, it's going to help improve their plane of nutrition and improve their response to health.
Yeah. No, I love that because, I guess it goes back to what we were talking about. The multimodal is actually, it's right. Good to have, a little bit of everything, and you're going to get probably the biggest benefit. But if it gets to a stage where you're adding 5 or 6 or 7 different products, then it all becomes too much. You throw your hands up in the air and you go, it's too hard for me. I don't have time for this. So this has been a fantastic conversation. I've loved hearing just the developments and the exciting field. And like you say, we're just at the very beginning. For those people who want to dive more into, the work that you're both doing and the company that you're working for and the products that are available, where can people head to learn more about all of that good stuff?
Well, our website is realmushrooms.com, REAL mushrooms.com. So in the US, you can order the products through Real Mushrooms. We're also available on Amazon. And if you're out of the US, I know that our products are now available on iHerb. So that would be a good place to look for them. And if you go to our website, there's a little pet section. You can order the Real Mushrooms for pets are going to be there. And we also have on the website a link that says Learn, which there's all kinds of Dr. Silver's written blogs. I've written blogs. There's a lot of information. If you want to, everybody, it's not just for the pets. I encourage everybody to look into taking mushrooms, and there's a lot of information on there on the different mushrooms and what to look for in a quality mushroom, et cetera.
Fantastic.
Once a month, we have a live streamed pet Q&A where I have no idea what they're going to ask me. It's a lot of fun. But it's live. And so people can really get on board. And if they have a burning question they need the answer for, they can certainly submit them there. So, and those could be found also through our website, can't they, Jen?
Yeah. Our next one is August 25th, Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Oh, no, 7 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. No, 4 p.m. Pacific. I just moved. Forgive me. I just moved to Virginia from California, so I'm still getting my time zones sorted out. But 4 p.m. Pacific.
It's usually 5 o'clock Mountain Time, which is where I am.
Yeah.
No.
It's been great being here, Doc. Really appreciate the opportunity to help educate pet parents about ways they can help keep their pets healthier and not have to go into the vets unless it's annual prevention.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, Dr. Rob and Joni. And yeah, I will leave all of those links in the show notes and in the blog post and all of that good stuff, so people can find out more and dive deeper into the world of mushrooms and watch this space, I guess I would say as well, because we're at the tip of the iceberg and there's a whole lot more to come.
Helping your pet live the happy, healthy life they deserve.
So I hope you enjoyed that conversation. We talked about a huge range of different things, diving into mushroom biology through to how you can introduce the benefits of mushrooms to your pets today. Remember, you can check out all of the conversation, the transcript, the blog post over at callthevet.org, where there'll be links to everything that we mentioned as well. And all that's left is for me to remind you, if you've enjoyed this episode, if you think it will be valuable to your pet-owning friends and family, be sure to spread the word and send them this way, which will also help with my mission to help improve the health and well-being of the global pet population. And so, until the next episode, I'm veterinarian Dr. Alex. This is the Call the Vet Show. Take care.
That's it for this episode of the Call the Vet Show. Be sure to visit callthevet.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. We'll see you next time.